Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to a brand new show coming to you from the Dynasty Hot Seat. It is the Fantasy Career Retrospective. What we're going to do, pick a player and go through what they've done so far in their career in terms of fantasy. Now, this is probably intended to be more of an off-season show. However, we got a special situation on our hands, right? We got Deshaun Watson, who's coming back towards the back end of the season, and he's going to change the fantasy and dynasty landscape here because you have got an elite quarterback coming back here. Yeah, teams are going to drastically improve if they have Deshaun Watson on their roster. So, what we're going to do, we're going to sit back. This is less the hot seat today. This is kind of more the dynasty chill seat, right? We're going to talk a little bit about the stats of what he's done each year and what that might mean going forward. Now, guys, don't often ask for this. This is a brand new show, so I'd really appreciate it. Hit a thumbs up on this video if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe button as well, and why not leave a little comment on what you might expect Deshaun Watson will do going forward. I would really, really appreciate it. And if we get good success with this, I'm hoping to do a couple more. Hey, why not even leave a comment about who you'd like me to break down next and go through? So, like I said, Dynasty chill seat today. So let's sit back, relax, and I'll talk you through some Deshaun Watson and what he's done. All right, so Deshaun Watson, right? Let's start off with his rookie season. So Deshaun Watson comes into the league, highly drafted out of Clemson, wins the national championship for Clemson, absolutely huge. Ends up going to the Houston Texans. Goes in a draft filled with amazing quarterbacks, and Mitchell Trubisky goes first out of all those, which is insane. Goes ahead of Mahomes, goes ahead of Watson as well, crazy. His rookie year, doesn't play every game, but he comes out and he averages 36 fantasy points per game in standard scoring, which is absolutely insane. He had a 3-touchdown game. He had 2 4-touchdown games. He even had a 5-touchdown game, which is insane. If we look at him throwing versus rushing, he had 266 yards on average per game for throwing, with 42 yards on average rushing. Pretty solid numbers. He only had a 61% completion rate, but that's kind of what you expect from a rookie quarterback. That went up and up as his career went on. And heck, he was an All-Pro, and he won Offensive Rookie of the Year. Going into his sophomore year, that is his first full year as the starter, and the solid numbers kind of continued on, right? Averages 25 points per game. That was good enough to finish quarterback 5 overall. A very impressive feat. We'll get to that more a little bit later. He's averaging 260 yards with his arm per game, 34 yards with his legs per game. The problem with this year, the Houston defense was terrible. Really, really bad. He was sacked nearly 70 times, which is insane. A huge amount of sacks. He still managed to make the Pro Bowl. Still managed to finish as quarterback 5, despite being sacked nearly 70 times. That is hugely impressive. And going into his third year, that kind of just continued. 26 points per game in standard fantasy scoring. That's good enough for quarterback 5 again. 2 years on the bounce. His 2 first full seasons, top 5 quarterback finishes. He had 4 games where he threw 3 touchdowns. And he had another game where he threw 5 touchdowns in one game. He was sacked almost 20 times less as well, which was really, really good for him. He averaged 241 yards with his arm and 25 yards with his legs that year. Moving into his 4th year, 28 points. We can see we've gone 25, 26, 28, getting better and better as it goes on. So 28 points per game on average. That was good enough for, guess where? You're right. We're back 5 again. He had 3 games where he threw 3 touchdown passes. He had 2 games where he threw 4 touchdown passes. He averaged 301 yards per game. So on average, he threw over 300 yards a game. Incredible. Think about who he was throwing it to as well. By that time, DeAndre Hopkins, gone. He had Brandon Cooks. He had Will Fuller. And he had who? Kiki Kute. And he still managed over 300 yards per game, which is impressive. Including that, he averaged 28 yards with his legs every game. But he was sacked only 19 times. And that was important. If you look at what Davis Mills has done with, not the same, but similar kind of offensive line, right? He's been sacked 28 times in 10 games. So you can see that Watson with his legs is able to get away from those oncoming defenders. If we look at the Browns team, Jacoby Brissett, in 11 games, he's been sacked 24 times. So you'd imagine Deshaun Watson would be able to get away from, the oncoming traffic a little bit better than Jacoby Brissett. So maybe he's playing with a similar offensive line that he had with the Texans, where he is going to now with the Browns. Arguably, the Browns one might even be a little bit better. But we'll get to that a little bit later. So now we're going into Deshaun Watson's 5th year in the NFL playing, right? He's obviously missed some time. It's kind of hard to pull data on long quarterback layoffs because generally a long quarterback layoff, you kind of come back as a backup and you don't really earn a starting place, right? But there is one example. It's Michael Vick. Michael Vick went away. Michael Vick went to prison. He left an Atlanta team. He was away for 2 years. He came back to a better situation than what he left, kind of like Deshaun Watson. Michael Vick was an all-pro and he won Offensive Player of the Year. Now, does that mean anything for Deshaun Watson? No, of course not. But what it does mean is that a 2-year layoff is not a death sentence in the NFL. If Michael Vick could do it, I don't see any reason why Deshaun Watson can't do it. Similar where he's leaving a bad situation, coming into a better one. So who knows what Deshaun Watson is going to look like. But I think saying that he's going to come back and look terrible and need time to adjust, that's maybe a bit of a reach. So he can come back and he can look good, I think. The big thing that he might have, which is Michael Vick had to struggle with as well, is what are the crowds going to be like? Can he block that out? Because he's not going to get good receptions wherever he goes, especially in his first game back in Houston. That's not going to be good. I want to come back to that quarterback 5 finish. He started 3 full years in the NFL. He finished quarterback 5 all 3 times. Now, I don't think in the fantasy community and the Dynasty community we quite understand how impressive that is. It is an insane achievement. If we look at some of the best quarterbacks right now, okay, or even of all time, Aaron Rodgers, in the last 10 years, he's been a top 5 quarterback in fantasy 3 times. Dak Prescott has been a top 5 fantasy quarterback once in his entire career. Kyler Murray has been a top 5 quarterback 1 time in his entire career. Lamar Jackson has been a top 5 quarterback 1 time in his entire career. Ben Roethlisberger, 1 time in his entire million years career. He did it once. Deshaun Watson's 3 for 3. That is hugely impressive. You may be thinking you've missed the boat to go and get Deshaun Watson, to go and buy Deshaun Watson, but let me tell you, I think his value is lower right now than it will be this time next year. So you still have a chance. There's still people who are iffy about it. going to be hard to buy him, but you can do it. I mentioned that name, Kyler Murray. I bet you can swap Kyler Murray for Deshaun Watson. I bet that will get it done. If you're lucky, very lucky, you might even be able to get a little bit on top. That's the move I'd be looking to make. Go get rid of Kyler Murray. Go get Deshaun Watson. Because I think he's a better player. Stat shows he's a better player. His NFL career shows he's a better player. Everything shows that he's a better player than Kyler Murray. So that's what I would be doing. I expect Deshaun Watson to come back, hit the ground running, have a solid rest of the year this year. And then at the start of next year, he'll be going in the first round of your Dynasty startups in your fantasy leagues. He'll be a first-round player. Absolutely no doubt about it in my mind. So think about what you pay for a first-round player. Deshaun Watson's probably still cheaper than that. So from my eyes reviewing, I think he's going to come back. I think he's going to continue that top 5 quarterback upside. So that's it, guys, right? Just a quick little review, quick little look at the history of Deshaun Watson. From a fantasy perspective, we're not going to get into all the other stuff, right? That's a whole separate podcast. But that's the stats on paper about Deshaun Watson, what he's done, and what he might do going forward. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Please, again, hit a thumbs up. Leave a comment. Who would you like me to do next? What do you think? Is Deshaun Watson going to come back and do well? Yeah, anything you want, leave it in the comments below. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. That would be amazing. So, guys, thank you so much for listening. And yeah, hopefully we'll continue these, and I'll see you later on.